Hey, what's up guys? JayzTwoCents here, and we're gonna do a video that I said, even on Tech Talk, that I wasn't gonna do. Already making me a liar and a hypocrite. But whatever, I can do that, I guess. It's my choice.
Cooler Masters K-Smart World Series is where you will find the most custom computers on the planet. Head to mod.coolermaster.com for more details. Be there!
Alright, so you have probably undoubtedly heard that we are dealing with a GTX970 memory RAM gate, as people are hashtagging it, or hashtag I want 4 gigabytes or whatever. I mean, this has turned into such a circus. Like I said, I don't even know why I'm doing this video, but I've been begged by so many people to do it. I figured I will go ahead and do it. So, the GTX 970. This thing came out on September 18th, 2014. All of us reviewers talked about it. We all got various samples. I've got the G1 Gaming, I've got the SSC from EVGA, and it was touted as like the most bang for the buck card out there. It was like, the 980 is great, but the 970 really is the value, and it was hanging with the 290 and 290X in lots of tests, and the specs were really outstanding. I mean, over 1600 CUDA cores, 4 gigabytes of GDDR5, 64 ROP. Well, it turns out that there at least was a miscommunication between NVIDIA's engineering team and the advertising team, where the specs for the memory side are cut down a little bit more than we really anticipated, or even we reviewers even noticed. We'll talk about that a little bit. Now, there's two sources I'm going to point you to when it comes to the technical facts of this, because I'm not going to turn this into a 45-minute video talking about the specs and exactly how they were cut down and how it matters. Now, that's Tech Report, Scott Wasson, and PC Per over there, Ryan Shroud. They have done an amazing job at covering this and going into technical detail. Now, what's actually happening here with the 970 on a high level, kind of just a quick explanation, is you have a cut down crossbar on the 970 versus the 980, which is giving you one less L2 cache module that has to feed two memory controllers, one of those feeding the 500 megabyte segmented portion of that VRAM that's on there. So that's how you have a 3.5 and a 500 megabyte. Now that 500 megabyte is considered a low level or a low priority RAM, and so that's why a lot of games, when you're gaming on them, will only show a cap of 3.5 gigabytes of VRAM and not go beyond that into the 4 gigabytes. Now, before we talk about my thoughts on this, I figured I'm gonna look at this from the perspective of Jay 3 years ago. Let's say Jay, or even, I'm sure this is gonna apply to many of you. You've scrimped and you've saved and you mowed lawns and you washed cars and you worked overtime and you did what you had to do to go out and buy your first high-end graphics card, and you picked up a GTX 970 on launch day. And you were excited about it, you were playing on the card and you thought, this is fantastic. Or maybe you're considering buying one right now, you're in the situation that I just described, and you were considering buying one of these, and then you hopped on Twitter, you hopped on your favorite tech forum, and now you're seeing all this 970 RAM gate stuff and you guys don't know what to do. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna turn around. I've got my Elgato Game Capture hooked up to the test bed right now. We're gonna actually capture some gameplay. We're gonna go through a couple of different scenarios, and we're gonna see how well the card performs in these different scenarios. And we're gonna try and stress it. We're gonna put it to the cap of that 3.5 gigabytes, and we're gonna see exactly what happens. So we're gonna find out together, even though I've already done all these benchmarks, we're gonna find out together right now in real time how the card is really performing and whether or not it's a card that's still worth buying with your hard-earned dollars. So with that said, let's go ahead and transition into the test bench and let's start playing some games.
Transition.
Okay, so here we go, guys. We are gonna use MSI Afterburner here to do our test of VRAM usage. Now, there's one thing I want to point out here. I'm using 1080p for two reasons. One, my Elgato Game Capture that I'm using to capture this can only supply 1080p to the monitor when it's using HDMI pass-through. And then second, 1080p is actually used by 98% of gamers when Steam poll was actually done on hardware. So 98% are using 1080p or less. So remember, the perspective of this video is the average consumer went and bought a graphics card like the 970, and now they want to know whether or not it's something that they should worry about or return. So the first thing we're going to do here is the Battlefield 4 64-bit, actually I already had it open, 64-bit test on a 64-man server. And we're going to just max the slider out as far as we possibly can. I also have fraps running here so that we can see a real-time on-screen FPS meter. I don't like to use the built-in MSI Afterburner overlay or on-the-screen display OSD. So, yeah. Anyway, we're doing 1080p for this test. Okay, so here we are in the menus video. You can see we are in the Ultra preset, 4x MSAA, which is the most inefficient use of VRAM. So we're trying to do the best we can to use as much of that as possible. Let's go ahead and bump this up to say, let's go 150 on the resolution scale to add more resolution to this. See what we get here. All right, there we go. Let's go ahead and see how this is going to perform. I mean, you can see our FPS, even at 150% resolution scale, is sitting pretty good. It's not terrible. We're only going to play for a couple minutes here. I'll probably end up editing this, and we're going to take a look at what the VRAM was doing according to MSI Afterburner. Oh. All right, let's go ahead and see what was happening here on MSI Afterburner. So according to Afterburner, we only used 1.5 gigabyte, oh, excuse me, derp. We used 2.7 gigabytes of VRAM during that with the resolution scale at 150. So let's go ahead and put it up to 200 and see what happens. Oop, that's soldier zoom intensity. My bad. All right, 200%. So we're doubling the size of the resolution here, which is going to put a lot of strain. So we're going to notice some FPS dips for sure. But what we're looking for here is terrible stuttering or just flat out freezes, because that's what people were complaining about. And I mean, yeah, we're sitting at right about 300 or 30 FPS, between 30 and 40 FPS. But really the resolution scale at this point is getting pretty damn near 4K overall on the textures. So, I don't know, though, it looks pretty consistent to me. Granted, the FPS is terrible. Consider 30 FPS to really be all that great of a gaming experience. But so far, I'm not seeing any crashing. I'm not seeing any stuttering or any freezing. Textures look freaking amazing, though. So, I don't know, I'm waiting for the freezing and stuff. I'm waiting for RAM gate to appear.
Hang on, let me help
you. Still waiting for RAM gate. Oh, I got sniped nicely. Good job, Mr. Sniper. All right, so what happened with the RAM on this one? Memory usage went up to 3. Well, you can see right there we had a spike as we left at 3607, and it came down now as it's sitting there. All right, so here we are in the Skyrim settings. You can see everything is completely maxed out. Object detail fade, there, click that, whatever that is. Everything's on Ultra, FXAA. Everything is on the highest you can go here. So there we go. Let's go ahead and play some Skyrim. Now you're going to notice here that I'm level 1. I've got like no progress in the game. That's because I lost all of my Elder Scrolls progress, but that's okay. I didn't play it too much. I just was using it for some benchmarks and things. So pretty much we're sitting here right at the beginning of the game. Oh well, no big deal. So as you can see on, all right, FPS is running away to 145 FPS. As you can see, we're Moving nicely, nice and smooth. There's no stuttering as I'm turning here. There's no motion blur when I turn, though. I noticed that. I do see some what looks like texture flickering there in the water, but that could be just because of the runaway FPS. I don't know. I notice it doesn't actually do that when I have vertical sync going, but hey, we'll look at the RAM usage and we'll see what's happening. Maybe it's RAM related. Who knows? All right, so let's see how much VRAM we're actually using right now. Memory usage, it's even less than Battlefield. We're at 1400 memory or megabytes. I can't 1487 megabytes. So we're not even going to go any farther on that one. I mean, I know that there are mods and things for this game. There are no mods installed. I don't believe that the average PC gamer is going to buy the graphics card and be like, I'm going to start modding. Of course, that's going to be a kind of a niche enthusiast group there as it is. But as you can see, FPS is doing just fine. Let's go ahead and clear that bad boy. And now we're going to go ahead and do the other one everyone said that I should do on this test, which is Shadow of Mordor. And I do have, as you can see here, the HD content pack is installed. Now I've already run this test, and this is one that I will say does seem to hammer the graphics card more than any other test that I've done. Shadow of Mordor, Middle Earth. I said that backwards, but I don't care. Middle of Shadow Mordor Earth. All right, options, video. All right, so we're at 1080p, 970 FPS, no limit. Apply settings, yes. So advanced options, I mean, everything as you can see is just boom, as high as it will go. Ultra, 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 depth of field, order in transparency, tessellation, apply, bam. All right, so this thing is as high as it will go with the HD texture pack. And once again, this is one of those games that I have not really done a whole lot in, just some benchmarking, so obviously this isn't a playthrough or anything like that. I wouldn't expect a playthrough if that's what you're going for, because you're not gonna get it. At least not in this video. Maybe in a future video. I gotta find a way to implement playing more games in my life. I don't play enough games. All right, so as you can see, when turning here, we did get a little bit of stuttering right there. We'll go ahead and do a swan dive. Whee! All right. So far we're doing okay. FPS doesn't look too shabby. Just go for broke here. Oops. Uh-oh. This was a bad thing. Run away! Run away! Run away! Whoa, a little bit of stuttering. Stop it. Yeah, we're getting a little bit of stutters here. I think I've bitten off more than I can chew here. This is kind of how I go about life. I just jump in and take on more than I can chew. So I kind of feel like this guy in a way. There's no way I can defeat all these guys. I guess we're gonna try now, aren't we? This is a good way to really test the card, I guess. Die.
Told my lads, I'd finish you off when you were weak.
Am I taking on 2 captains here? Whoa, we had a couple of really bad stutters there. Uh-oh. You... Oh, yeah, I know. Alright, let's see what was happening here with MSI. So as you can see here, we sat right around 3.5, dipped down, came up, dipped down, came up. Core clock was really good, but as you can see here, the GPU usage had some stutters in there, but the stutters don't really line up with anything happening with the RAM. So I'm gonna say that this might just end up being part of the HD content and everything being maxed out and this being a 970. So I guess that leads us into conclusion time. Okay, here we go, guys. Conclusion time and my 2 cents on this whole 970 matter. Now, as I mentioned, I try to put myself in the perspective of somebody who's going out and buying a 970. They only want to buy one card, they want it to last several years, and they've freaked out after hearing all of this 970 rumor stuff, which is, I guess, not really a rumor, it's confirmed now at this point. But they're concerned now about whether or not they should keep the card or concerned about whether or not they should buy the card if they were thinking about buying one. And here is what it comes down to as far as I'm concerned. The GTX 970 is still an amazing graphics card. Now the general public, especially those PC enthusiasts and gamers, are mad. And I think that that's a little bit rightfully so, considering it does say right here, massively 4 gigabytes GDDR5. Now that can be a little bit misleading because you would think that you have 4 gigabytes available to the game engine or the gaming engine, the way the card works, available to the games to give you the best performance. But as you can see with Shadow of Mordor, 3.5 is technically where it caps out. It doesn't even try and use those other 500 megabytes of VRAM. Now the only way that benchmarks were able to do it. In fact, some of those MS-DOS-based benchmarks or command benchmarks where they were forcing access to that RAM, which was causing the card to actually work outside of the way it was designed. So therefore, you saw massive slowdowns. Now, NVIDIA does say that that 500 megabytes is similar to accessing system RAM, which is what happens when you use more than your available VRAM on a graphics card, but that it's 4 times faster. But as you saw, Shadow of Mordor was not using more than the 3.5 because the game really only saw 3.5. Now that is something that people do, in my opinion, have a legitimate fact or a legitimate right to be angry over, thinking they were buying a 4 gigabyte video card when in fact they were getting a 3.5 gigabyte video card. Now the only people who would really probably be affected by this are going to be people who are playing Shadow of Mordor at 1080p on high res or HD resolution, trying to max it all the way to the right. And then people who are doing things like heavily modified Skyrim, heavily modified Minecraft, or other very heavy texture-based games. Now, in my opinion, the general buyer out there is probably not doing all of that. Now, if you're the kind of person that's like, I just want to buy a graphics card, I just want to throw it into my computer, and I want to have a good gaming experience by just playing some of my Steam games, or playing Battlefield, or Counter-Strike, or Call of Duty, or things like Tomb Raider, Far Cry 4, whatever, then you're going to find that the card is going to serve you very well and well into the future. In fact, a lot of people right now are playing on graphics cards that don't have more than 2 or 3 gigabytes of VRAM, and you don't really hear them complaining because VRAM is not usually the limiting factor on the gaming experience. So if you take anything away from this video, the GTX 970 is still a fantastic card, and it's going to serve you well for years to come on most titles, unless you start getting heavily into things that are texture-based or modified or high definition texture packs. Now, there's a couple of good things that actually came out of this. This was an opportunity for AMD to jump, and they did. AMD definitely jumped by slashing the price of the 290 and the 290X even further, which now means that you can get graphics cards like the 290X for as little as, and sometimes cheaper than, a GTX 970. So really, this is a good thing for the consumers, but I do think NVIDIA is going to have to work really hard at getting back some of the trust of the public. I think there might be a little bit of a trust issue now when it comes to that, but I don't feel that this is something that's going to happen again on NVIDIA's part. I think they've learned from this, or hopefully they've learned from this, assuming that it wasn't an outright deception. I don't believe it's an outright deception. They would know that this would eventually come to light. They wouldn't try to completely deceive the public. At least I would hope that that's the case. So I think that they've learned their lesson from this, and they're going to have a little bit different checks and balances now when it comes to their advertising department and their engineering department. So we can hope for that at least. But there you go, guys. If you're looking at getting a GTX 970, the card is still delivering everything it promised and everything that we said it was delivering at the time of launch, and today, 5 months later. So I don't feel that it's a terrible card. I think it's unfortunate the way things went down with the way the VRAM is working. In fact, NVIDIA says that this is by design, this 3.5 and 500. It's the first time they've ever done it. In fact, it wasn't even possible before on the way that the bar and the L2 cache works, but now it's possible. So what could have been a great technological advancement to say, hey, we have done something here that could be very good in the future, unfortunately now kind of gives them a black eye. But I do feel that it was a little bit of an unfortunate thing where you're not really getting 4 gigabytes of GDDR5 for your games to access. So there you go, guys. My 2 cents on the GTX 970. Still a fantastic card. If I was in the shoes where I bought the card, and based on the performance that I'm getting right now, and this was the only card I owned, I personally wouldn't be returning it, because I don't fall into the group that's being affected by this whole VRAM thing. And then lastly, if you're the kind of person that's like, nope, this is a deal breaker for me, well, you've got even cheaper AMD cards now to consider, like the 290 and 290X. So all around, it kind of stimulated the market a little bit when it comes to price drops, because AMD was like,
heck yeah, we're gonna go ahead and lower prices even more and be like 4 gigabytes, bitches.
there you go, guys, GTX 970. Take it for what it is. These were the tests I performed. That was my 2 cents on it. Hope to see you guys in the next one.